Hello everyone and welcome to a Starcraft 2 educational commentary. In this one I do my Terran vs Protoss battlecruiser opener into Bio Terran or late game. And what I'm trying to do here is a concept that Hero Marine explains, where you have a scouting force and a creep clearing force, even a harass force, which is my battlecruiser right now. It could be Banshees, it could be a medevac drop, while also keeping a force home to defend. Right now my force home to defend is a couple mines and my reinforcing marines. This is where I try and split the zerg. I send in the Hellions, but they get deflected by queens, and so I send in the battlecruiser because I know that most of his air defense, which is the queens, is on his front line. I decided to take out the third base instead of his macro hatchery, and I try my best to run my Hellions into his natural, but I realize he's very turtled up for a zerg. So I let my battlecruiser do the heft of the damage, and he really doesn't have air defense right now. He's building a spire, but for the meantime all he has is queens to take out my battlecruiser. They come by, we'll see if they can save the hatchery. They don't save the hatchery, and now the battlecruiser stays to do damage to the queens. But I warped out because I got my damage done, and now this is the time where I transition into a bio army with tanks and bunkers to keep zergling run-bys out of my base. I sort of have a mindset where after my opener I like to max out next, and that'll be my next timing. I think in the early leagues, like this is a low platinum high gold right now, I think it works very well. Now I send out a detachment of bio to attack. Meanwhile I'm keeping some tanks at home to prevent run-bys, and you can see it deflects exactly that, and I go to build a barracks. Now I send a battlecruiser to his fourth, and I like to think that'll open up an opportunity for my army on the left to attack. I was going to warp the battlecruiser out because all of its defense was there, but I decided it might be a little bit more fun to pair it up with my harassing force and make a strong thrust. A Ling Bane attack is brewing. Meanwhile, I've pulled out before all the banelings can finish, and now I work on clearing creep. And now comes the attack. We'll see if I'm able to survive. I get the pre-splits off. The rest of the air army is distracted on my battlecruiser. What you'll notice is I split my marines and then move them back in. I believe the battlecruiser gets taken out, and I do end up sacrificing my army without taking down the hive, which is unfortunate. Or I guess this might still be a hatchery. Hive, hatchery, layer, I can't keep it up. They're all bugs. And now I'm especially committed to setting up my base for defense and preparing for the next max out. And so that's again where it goes to this strategy of having a strong defensive line around your bases while sending out detachments to harass and do what damage you can. I start expanding my fourth, and I'm sending out a medevac drop. However, the zerg has other intentions. He sends an attack, but here you can see my defensive line takes him away, so he can't break through as easy and harm my economy in any way, which helps a lot when you're trying to play a bit of a bio game. There's probably better ways to keep your whole army up front, but since I'm a lowly platinum player, trying to macro my whole bio army while keeping my base safe is a little bit too hard, and so having a strong defensive line is where we settle. I'm able to snipe his fifth base, or fourth base now. I lose all the marines and marauders. I was thinking about sending out all my bio, but again, I realized I should keep a decent army home. I just got economic damage, so if I double down on my macro, I can stay ahead this match, no matter what the Zerg tries to pull out of his box of units. What I've been finding is setting up bunkers in the choke points works really well. You can put your turret and your scanner as a sort of outpost. I do exactly that here. And again, it deflects the Zerg's attack. Nothing like a planetary fortress. He sends some ooey gooey guys in, but I spot them. And so he falls back. And before the Zerg gets time to breathe, I send out a Liberator. This one's just set up. Haven't activated it yet. But it's nice to have those options, especially on the other side of the map. And so I've got a Liberator on the left and a strong detachment of bio on the right. I kind of like this strategy where you send your bio out, but you keep your tanks and your siege units at home. I start breaking off detachments from my main forward operating hill. And so I like keeping them pre-split in case a big Zerg Baneling attack comes by. I can try and keep it deflected. He tacks up a hill into this bio, clears them up. I don't do much about it. I just clear some creep down here while I know his army's away. And even if I lose these troops on the low ground, I know I still have a defensive position up on the hill. I think this just helps me give a decent amount of pressure on the Zerg. I can keep him from expanding on this side while I keep these troops here. And I know that I have a lot of choke points set up in my base, so I'm not too scared of having my bio out on the map right now. And now I bring the troops back home because I got the hatchery pick, and while they're coming back home rather than allowing the Zerg to rest, I set up a Liberator on his third. And one thing you'll notice is that these kind of harasses are great in the early leagues because just give it a minute. He hasn't realized that that Liberator even exists. There it is. All army hotkey. Takes his whole entire army away from my base just for one of my units. I think that's such a fantastic thing as a Terran these multi-prong attacks do for you. And now I set up a double medevac drop with a quarter of a third to his top right while moving just a batch of bio to the left. These bio should ideally have some medevacs with them, but we're not perfect, especially when you're balancing a macro match and trying to keep all your units online. I get the snipe on the hatchery again, which is just slowly choking out the Zerg's production of economy and units. And now again, this is where I do a multi-prong attack. I know that he's probably responding to the troops up in the top right, so I attack on the left side. Now that's 2 bases sniped without really coming in any confrontation with the Zerg until now. And this is that revolving door strategy where because he's attacking one side of my army, I send in the other. Unfortunately, both of my batches of units do get cleaned up, but the whole time I've been building up reinforcements and I still have my defensive line in the main. I keep clearing creep with the survivors because this Zerg was really good at creating creep spread. Now, after every bit of these attacks, I like to sit back a little bit, work on my macro because I know my macro falls apart when I'm trying to micro my units too much. And then also just re-maxing out. Now that I've maxed out, I don't want to give the Zerg too much time to get his economy back. And so I send out dual Liberator drops, or I guess not drops. And this allows me to scout this base because I didn't even know this base was growing. And I turn it around and just kind of set it up to deny mining. I'm not trying to micro too much. Second Liberator comes by, sees that he hasn't re-expanded. Scout around a little bit. Try and siege up at his third. It's a bit awkward, so I just try and kill the queen. Able to get the queen kill, but now I don't have enough micro to re-siege onto the drones, unfortunately. Or do I? Unfortunately, his whole army's here to deal with the Liberator. But while he's been dealing with his dilemmas, I'm moving out a large detachment to do some damage on the left side. I brought a lot of tanks with me, but you can see I still have a lot at home. I'm trying to start doing some heavy damage, which is why I'm utilizing the tanks now. I feel like we've been slowly whittling, and now it's time to bring out some larger hammers to break the defensive structure of the Zerg. The Zerg is a multi-armed octopus. You want to keep picking off those arms, which are the hatcheries. And little by little, you can wear down their economic ability to the point that you can do a large thrust into their main. So you can see I even had tanks in this rear to have a nice defense and depth. That way if he kills the bio and a couple tanks on the front, I'm still doing damage. I set up a little bit of a detachment, a little bit of an all-army hotkey. Clear a little bit of creep along the way. And I notice my bio on the left gets cleared up by lurkers, so I select all-army hotkey and start moving to defend, because I have a hunch that he's going to try and attack me with those. Thankfully, between the bunker, planetary fortress, and reinforcing troops, and a lot of scans, we're able to deal with the lurkers with little damages. On the macro front, we've got an ungodly amount of bases. I'm transitioning into Thors and mass siege tank production, trying to make it happen, trying to finally do that big push to end this fight against the Zerg. This might not be the fastest way to kill the Zerg, but it's the safest way. It's just really dangerous against Zerg if you send your whole entire army, tanks and all out, because he can often flood some banelings and Zerglings and finish your army. And so that's why here I am just sending out a lot of bio again. Maybe I could have done a giant thrust to his main, but I don't want to risk losing my whole army and then having a counterattack kill everybody. There's like different tiers of zoom, I think. Sorry. He tries to find an angle to take out my reinforced position on the top, and he does have such a large unit supply that it's hard to deal with. Again, I split my units and then A-click and move them back in after the banelings explode. And so I'm able to clear up a lot of his forces with just a lowly bio comp. And I start diving in again to get another hatchery kill. I'm just sort of crashing waves on him, especially because I have such a large mineral and gas count. I know that I can just throw a lot of these units away for trades and wear the Zerg down. Again, he tries to do another push. He has a hefty amount of lurkers, which is a little bit more challenging to deal with, but that's where I start creating a bunch of tanks, because I know tanks deal with them, and then I start dealing with Thors, because Thors are great against lurkers, Thors are great against banelings, Thors are great against Zerglings, especially when you have some bio to support them, as well as a couple tanks. And so here I lie under siege. I decide I want to break the siege a little bit, so I A-move in. The Thor is doing great work against the lurkers and barely taking any damage despite not having any Terran armor upgrades. Now Terran weapons upgrades, that's max out. He manages to kill a planetary fortress, but trading a lot of resources and a lot of supply for it. And you'll see the Zerg has a lot of corruptors, and I think that's all because I sent one battlecruiser out, which really limits his ability to fight on the ground. And now finally I start moving out. I still have my tank set up. I probably could have brought them with me, but hey, no chances of a Ling run by with these tanks here. But I've got a giant mech army out. I'm ready to start dealing with the Zerg once and for all. Sweeping by on the right flank, I feel like it's always good to start at the extremities instead of going into the middle, where you can get surrounded very easily as their troops come out of their hatcheries. I like setting up on this high ground. Got 2 points of high ground too to set a sort of no man's land. I think he realizes that he's a little bit trapped, and so he tries to break out, but he tries to push up into tanks and Thors, and it's just not happening. Using the defensive advantage on an offense is one of the most fun things you can do. He sets up to try again. He's using Vipers, so he's trying to pick the army apart, but it's just too large of an army to deal with. He has 24 drones at this base. He burrows them. I might not see them, actually. Which is pretty clever, I'll give him that. No, I fall back to my hill. I probably could have kept pushing here, but I didn't want to overextend all. No, you know what I was doing here? I was waiting for my command centers to refresh on energy so I could have scans. Although there weren't any lurkers, so I didn't really need the scans. And now we've wiped out a large portion of his army. Mostly has Lings left, and again, the Lings don't do great at dealing with Thors. A couple of those drones get killed, but it's alright. We're just pushing in anyways. This is where I finally feel like I've weakened the Zerg enough and have built enough of a strength to push in. I probably could have done this sooner, but that's the hard part about beginner Terran against macro Zerg is deciding when it's safe to step deep into the creep and take out the heart of the Zerg. Now it's just cleanup. Yeah, send in some reinforcements to deal with one of his remaining mining hatcheries. That remaining force continues to hammer away at his hatcheries while the Thors keep the front door closed. You're staying in there, Zerg. And there we go. Finish out the match. Didn't take on a ton of head-on-head fights. Okay, maybe we did. I don't know. Take from it what you will. Alright, like and subscribe. Have a great day. Goodbye.